there was a lot that I realized that could be improved with security products. And part of that is I think more security practitioners should transition into or like foray into the product management world. Because today I think we have a shortage of product managers with experience in the trenches.
Welcome to a new episode of All Aboard, the show where we have real conversations with IT and security practitioners. No fluff, no talking points, just straight talk from experts and advice for tackling the toughest problems facing cloud-forward companies today. I'm your host, Alex Bodie, CEO and co-founder of Conductor One. Welcome to another episode of the All Aboard podcast. In August, I headed to Las Vegas for the 2024 Black Hat Conference. It's always so cool to connect with other cybersecurity folks in person, and it was a great opportunity to record some live conversations with friends in the industry to get their take on where things are going. This week, I'm excited to share the chat I had with Darwin Salazar, author of one of my favorite newsletters, the Cybersecurity Pulse. Darwin is a busy guy. He's the head of product at cybersecurity startup Monad, and he co-hosts the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast. His background is in security engineering, which really gives him a unique perspective, not only on the space, but also as a practitioner and product builder. Darwin really has his finger on the pulse of how the industry is growing and changing. Let's get into our conversation.
Darwin, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate
Alex,
it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We were just joking about, I don't know if it'll be able to get cropped out of the video here, but you can hear like the beat popping off at the pool party back here.
Yes. If you see me nodding my head, that's why.
It's because it's happening.
Yeah. We are in Vegas after all. So
that's right. It's very, very on brand. So thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So, hi, my name is Darwin Salazar. I am the head of product at Monad, a Series A startup building out security data ETL platform. In the past, I've done detection engineering at Datadog, cloud security consulting at Accenture, and have spent a bunch of time in IoT security, most notably medical device security at Johnson & Johnson. I've done everything from like red teaming, GRC with high trust, and PCI. And now I am on the product side. So building stuff for practitioners, things that I would have appreciated in my day as a practitioner. I've been very thoughtful to features and UI, UX decisions and things of that nature. I also run a newsletter called the Cybersecurity Pulse, where I stay up to date on the latest in security product releases and feature releases. What's the latest on the bleeding edge and on the cusp of that. And then also I'm a co-host on Security Weekly, Enterprise Security Weekly. So that's me in a nutshell.
You're doing all the things security. How did you decide to do the newsletter, the Cybersecurity Pulse?
So I decided to create the Cybersecurity Pulse about 18 months ago, so a year and a half ago, while I was at Datadog as a detection engineer. And the interesting thing is, in that role, I was building out the detection rules for Datadog CSPM at a time where there were already 30 plus CSPMs in the market. And so having had like 5+ years of experience working with CSPMs, I had ideas on how we could differentiate the product. And I also saw that like Wiz is continuously coming out with new features and all these mind-blowing things, and people are raving about them, and then Orca would follow. And then it's like nobody was encapsulating all of this into like a digest for product builders to kind of keep a pulse on what's going on. And so that's what I aim to do with the Cybersecurity Pulse, is to capture what's going on a weekly basis within each security domain that I have access and visibility to, and then serve that up to product builders, whether it's PMs, design folks, or founders. And so that was the impetus for me to build the Cybersecurity Pulse, because it's something that I would have appreciated when I was at Datadog.
Yeah, so I love just reading your newsletter week to week, because it's got all the interesting releases and just new things. It's great to see like what other vendors are doing and building in the space. I think it's kind of cool. It's like a lightweight way to stay in touch with it. I'm really curious. So you were doing detection engineering at Datadog, and then you've made the jump to product. It's got to be extremely helpful to have been a practitioner like in that context, I would imagine.
100%. And so as a practitioner and also as a consultant that has onboarded many different solutions into client environments, I have faced a lot of friction in bringing on new solutions into environments. And so like that, I've faced crappy onboarding experiences, crappy user workflows, like surfacing too much data at once, not necessarily like leading me to the key pieces of information that I need at that point in time. And so actually introducing friction into my workflows. And so there was a lot that I realized that could be improved with security products. And part of that is I think more security practitioners should transition into or like foray into the product management world. Because today I think we have a shortage of product managers with experience in the trenches. So that's kind of what sparked that desire, interest, and curiosity for me, and being able to solve the work that I'm doing at Monad now is the security data ETL. It's a product that I would have benefited a lot from when I was at DE and doing a bunch of consulting work at Accenture and building out pipelines and connectors for what was not currently supported by Sentinel out of the box. So a lot of custom integrations and regex and parsing. And so that's what our solution aims to do. And so solving the problem as a product manager for a problem that I've experienced firsthand is probably the best way that I could have forayed into product management versus me going from detection engineering practitioner to, say, identity security PM.
Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, they say that it's the same thing for founders. I mean, founders are kind of like PMs effectively of like the initial product. But I think the saying is always like, if you've experienced a problem or had to deal with it firsthand, like usually it makes you pretty qualified to go build a product to like solve that problem, which just sounds like basically you're doing at Monad and through your work at Datadog. But also I just love people who've been the having been in the trenches to solve a problem, and then you were a detection engineer, and then having to then work on the products in that space gives you the appreciation you talked about. It's like the onboarding, how what the user experience is like, from firsthand, like, hey, this is the way that I would want this to work if I was actually doing the job. So you're a lot more sensitive to those types of things, which I think is I think it's good. I think it makes for better products. So I'm not seeing Mona's product, but I'm assuming it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're nearing early access, private beta. So I'll cue you in.
You're gonna launch soon, huh?
Yeah.
Right,
I think within the next month and a half to 2, we'll open that up. So.
Oh, sweet. That's great. So you've been walking the floor, or did you get a pass to?
I did get a expo hall pass.
Yeah. What did you see? Anything interesting? Lots of AI I hear. I actually didn't get a pass. So.
Lots of AI, lots of overlap in capabilities and features. I think the exposure management domain right now is fairly saturated. I don't know who the clear winner is. I'm not SME in that space. So there's just a lot of overlap across existing areas. Cloud security being another one, and then also there was one marketing tagline that really blew my mind, and it's patchless patching. I'll tell you off the record who it is.
Yeah.
I've got a photo of it, but it really blew my mind how you could patch something without patching it. So I think that there's still a lot of fluff in this space, but overall, it's interesting to see how fast the industry is going. Because in 2018, I came to Black Hat, and there were probably 50% of the vendors that are on the floor now, back like even just 6 years ago. So I would say the industry is growing extremely fast.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of new startups doing new things, and they do the Black Hat shuffle and go show up and have the booth, and half of them die, half of them keep going.
Yeah.
It's the circle of life.
Yeah.
Right there, the Black Hat floor.
It's evolution.
That's right.
Natural selection.
Yeah, totally. And then you mentioned that you'd gone to the, was it the Innovators Summit?
Right.
What was that?
So on Tuesday, there was the Innovators and Investors Summit at Black Hat. And there were also summits for CISOs, analysts, and an AI security summit. I attended the Innovators and Investors Summit, and that included panels by folks like CEO of Vanta, Christina, Frederick Lee, CISO of Reddit, VP of DeepMind at Google, just some very big names in the industry, and a lot of great investors. So folks from like Ballistic, founder of Ballistic, and the founder of Thinks Canary. So a lot of insight for founders, product builders, and investors. And I wrote kind of like a digest of my key takeaways, and I put that up in the newsletter. So there are a couple takeaways that I could kind of mention off the top of my head. But yeah, it was an amazing summit, and I think well worth the investment to go there. So for folks listening next year,
check it out. Is it an extra cost, or was it just like a sort of like a track?
Extra cost, $1,200, but I did get a friendly discount.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, you got a term sheet like that? I was like, what did you get?
One of our advisors hooked me up with a pass. So I was like,
oh, that's super nice. That's awesome. Save you $1,200. That's real money, man.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you walk the floor. Obviously, AI is like super hype cycle. Lots of new companies, lots of new faces. Innovation Summit, pretty good. One thing that we just talked a little bit about before we jumped on here and chatted is I don't know how to navigate into this subject tactfully, but I'll just throw it out there. Selling to CISOs versus selling to the practitioners. I feel like there's something kind of funny right now going on where everyone's always trying to target the CISOs get barraged with, hey, go to dinner, go to this event, do this yachting thing, drive these cars, and they're saying, hey, I'm exhausted by this. Meanwhile, it feels like a layer down, the practitioners are like, they're the ones that are actually struggling with the problems. Right. A lot of times, even if you can get the ear of the CISO, they're like, hey, my first line or two lines down, like, hey, can you go take a look at the solution? So yeah, what's your take on that, I guess?
So
are we over marketing to CISOs?
We are absolutely over marketing and overselling to CISOs. And the cause for this discussion was that there was a panel at the Innovators and Investors Summit called Building Trust with CISOs. And so having been part of several sales cycles now as a product manager, I see that the folks who we're interacting with are the people who are actually going to be using the tool. Those are the ones who are leading the proof of concepts and the proof of values. Those are the ones that are assessing what competitors are on the market. And ultimately, they're the ones who are saying, we prefer to use this solution over any other. Hey, CISO or director of InfoSec, can you sign this check? Because this is what, in our evaluation, this is what we decided upon. And so it's much more of like a bottom-up process in evaluating a product and selecting a solution versus what the model that we're currently following in targeting CISOs. And so it's funny, CISOs kind of there's many layers of abstraction, especially depending on how big the security program at that given customer is. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I think we could do better with as an industry and as salespeople who we target, so that we're not burdening CISOs. They have so much compliance and legal things.
So much going on. They're thinking about what are their priorities and their biggest risks, right. And meanwhile, you're getting 100 emails from vendors every single day.
Right. Yeah. And so what are your thoughts on that? What have you seen in Conductor One that's been successful?
I mean, don't get me wrong. We talk to CISOs. I love talking to CISOs. It's a part of the motion. A lot of times to really understand priorities and sort of how they think about what the most important issues are that they're looking to solve and how they're keeping their businesses secure. So I think in many ways it informs our thinking. And certainly if we're able to engage at that level, we can understand if there's a project and get tied into it. But we do most of our direct marketing is geared towards practitioners and finding those folks who are on the front line, either directors of InfoSec, security engineers, GRC folks, people who IT many times, people who kind of own the problem statement of the problems that we solve as a modern governance platform. Because ultimately they're the ones who are going to be evaluating the solution. They're looking at products. They want to make sure that what they're going to get, it makes them happy.
Right.
And I do wonder if so much of this top-down marketing is just a holdover from many, you think 10 years ago, everything was sold directly to the exec suite and they would just make the decision and then push it down. And at some point people were like, hey, we're buying crappy products. That's
right. Yeah. And also there's a lot of overlap and the security tool sprawl, which is something that needs to be spoken about more. It's like, especially at some like larger financial institutions or healthcare institutions, some of these places that have been doing security for 10, 15, 20 years, there's a lot of overlap in coverage and capabilities. And so CISOs, they may have a pulse on that, but the ones who will have a better pulse on what their coverage and gaps are the folks on the ground doing the work, which is often not the CISO unless it's a CISO at like a Silicon Valley startup or something like that, smaller shop. So it's interesting, and I do think it's a lot of remnants of how we used to operate 10, 15 years ago, and there's room for a new approach.
Yeah, I agree with that. It'll be interesting to see what the new approach needs to look like.
Well, you guys are blazing the trail.
I mean, we're trying, but again, we it's not like we don't talk to executive senior leadership on security. It's just we tried not to barrage them.
Right. And they could be great champions if the messaging resonates with them enough, because a lot of CISOs have been practitioners.
Right.
So they have that domain expertise in the identity space because it's something that they've dealt with firsthand. So they can be great champions.
I'd actually argue of all the typical sort of executive team, the security leadership tends to actually be the most technical because they've come up and been like practitioners themselves.
Right.
Usually.
There's a newer breed of CISOs that are coming up that don't have as much of that technical hands-on. Not sure where folks land on this, but I do think that there's a need for the more business and legal-oriented CISOs, and then the more technical-oriented CISOs. So is there like a fork in the CISO role coming, or does it depend on like what business that CISO is serving? It totally depends, but I do feel like the requirements for the CISO role have changed a lot, even just in the past 3 years with, the SolarWinds, the Uber ruling, the SEC stuff. So we have to consider those things as well when we sell.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because so much of that job is also you're presenting to the board. You're talking about your corporate risk, what you're doing about it. You're pulling budgets together to make cases for the tools and the investments you want to make. So that is like it's much more than kind of in the trenches, like building technology to keep your business secure.
Right.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm curious on that. Do you see, have you pattern matched where that's tending to happen?
I have not
too early?
Firsthand, through my conversations, I can make an assumption that it's going to be in the more heavily regulated industries like finance, financial industry, healthcare, and public sector. Because obviously PCI, HIPAA, high trust, all these compliance frameworks, FedRAMP is another one. Like a lot of security is compliance driven, and that's a lot of what keeps CISOs and CIOs and CPOs up at night is the crap, if we fail this audit, then we might get fined, and then we won't be PCI compliant or whatever the case may be. So those heavily regulated industries are the ones that are most plagued with the compliance burden, I would say. Yeah,
it makes a ton of sense. You'd mentioned maybe one more topic before we wrap it up. You mentioned one of the challenges of security in general, I think, is there's so much overlapping Venn diagram and acronyms in the different spaces. And so many products, when you look at it and you kind of squint, you're like, well, that product looks like this product in this category over here that does a lot of this same stuff. And I don't know if you've got any spicy takes on this, but are there any categories that shouldn't exist? I don't know if you're allowed to answer this. or maybe not a less spicy way of asking it is, are there multiple categories or one or two categories that you think should really be kind of more converged?
Yeah, thanks for rephrasing the question. I did not want to be like...
You don't get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to be like Gartner and say, hey, SOAR is dead, right? I guess,
calling the shot.
Yeah, I guess SOAR is now dead according to Gartner's latest hype cycle. I'm just mind blown on that one. But which categories have a lot of overlap?
I mean, we see. I'll see the conversation. We see it on the identity side. Tons of overlap in PAM and IGA and IAM use cases.
I think there's a convergence between AppSec and CloudSec, especially with the container runtime and app runtime, API runtime. there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done there. I think there are some vendors that have come out over the past 2 years that are doing things differently than the incumbents like Wiz and Palo. So that's an area where there may be some convergence. I couldn't help but notice while walking the Black Hat floor, there were like 20, 25 different ASPM vendors. So I don't know what happens there, what the future looks like there. There is a lot of saturation across these categories, and AI security is not where the next round of innovation will be. I think we've seen that.
That's a spicy take.
Yeah, and it's like, I've spoken with several investors here, and they're like, we're not, it's more so resemblant to like early days iPhone and early days crypto, where, you know, the tech is real, there is adoption, but the folks who are adopting the technologies are not getting the expected ROI from it. So Gen AI hasn't really gained as much traction or brought as much ROI as people had expected on the onset back in like 2022, February 2023, when ChatGPT was really popping off. So it's interesting. I think there's a correction coming in the AI security market.
We are full on in the trough of disillusionment around AI, in my opinion. Like, the glitter's off and expectations are lowered, and now people are trying to figure out what the there is.
Exactly. So it's, you know, it's a fun time.
It's an interesting time to be in security. I mean, it's been obviously like a tough economic cycle over the last 2 years. I think it's, but there's still a lot of funding and growth in security, which is super interesting. A lot of innovation, companies doing interesting things.
Right.
So it'll be interesting next couple of years. Darwin, awesome. Thanks for being on, man. I appreciate it, dude.
Alex, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll catch the beat drop here.
Yeah. I don't care. I love it. Yeah, dude.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode of All Aboard is brought to you by the team at Conductor One. We'd love to hear your feedback. Send us a message at allaboard@conductor1.com. Till next time.